I'm going to try to monitor all the chat. And hi, everybody. It's been a week since we were all together. So today's session, we're going to, I need to mute everyone. All right. There we go. Wave your hands if you can still hear me. Okay. Today's session, we are going to, it's two parts. Real quick before we get to our guest speaker, we're going to hear from Michael Betts. He is going to go over a video that he has produced because it's timely right now because we're selling houses in less than 24 hours. So we want to communicate this to our customers and our clients. And so I want to take just a minute. I'm going to play the video and let you see our latest. I'm going to do a screen share here. And if you'll take just a moment, hopefully everybody can see my screen. And I'm going to play this really quickly. Yay, what do you think? Awesome, awesome. Michael, I'm going to ask you to just say a few words about our latest marketing piece.
You got it. Hey guys, the reason that I created that is, you know, in talking with some of the folks that, I mean, houses, some of these houses literally are selling within 24 hours. This is literally a perfect thing. It's less than a minute. And if it'll be text out to you so that you can send it to people on their phone. But here's the thing to think about. Any person that has ever even mentioned in the last 6 months about maybe wanting to sell their house, you need to send this to them because a lot of people don't understand that this is a great time for them to list and sell quickly if they want, and that the sales levels are strong, even the values. So this is a conversation starter. If you send it out to 30 people, I promise you, you're going to have a conversation with 15 of them that say, I had no idea. So are you guys really selling a lot of houses? It's a perfect opportunity to get the conversation started. So just wanted to put that together, and that's all I got. I hope you're able to use it.
Well, thank you, Michael. We love what you do to assist us in helping do what we do. So next, I'd like to bring Lee Harris on. I don't know, many of you will probably know Lee. Lee was General Counsel of the Kentucky Real Estate Commission. She has her own title company. She is a partner in a real estate college. She is has her own law firm, and her other favorite title is one of my very best friends. That's her other title. So we're so glad she was joining us today, and glad she's here to share a little bit about escalation clauses, because what we've been talking about with multiple offers, we feel like this is something you all at least need to be aware about. So Lee, I'm going to ask that I'm going to unmute you here. Unmute yourself, although I'm scared to do that. You are called iPhone. Okay. There you go, Lee. I got you unmuted. Lee, can you hear us? Lee? Is she gone? Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you're coming through, and Lee is not in the
Is
in
she
any of the rooms
gone?
right now.
Okay. Well, we
Remember,
could have,
remember when you talked about you and Kelly doing a seminar? Guess what?
yes. Well, hopefully Lee can come back and join the call. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Okay, so escalation clause. I'm gonna, got one more coming in here. Kara's coming in. So escalation clause, what is an escalation clause? Number one, in the law, it only mentions that in a listing contract, an escalation clause has to be listed in the offer to purchase. So a price or an escalation clause. There's no other part of the law that mentions it. We do have a clause on LBAR's contracts forms page, and I know you all have kind of looked at it and sent it and hopefully had a chance to look at it. I think the main thing to remember with escalation clauses is they can be great, possibly, but they can also maybe, they can cause some problems as well. So there's pros and cons to them. Kelly, do you want me to keep talking? Do you want me to kind of keep rolling? How, do you want
Yeah, you know, the one thing that the purpose of this is to, number one, know that an escalation clause is out there. And if you are representing sellers, you may see a buyer's agent bring in an offer accompanied by an escalation clause. And in the truest sense of real estate, most of us, I think, and I'm speaking very personal, have veered away from that, because an escalation clause, literally, you sort of get into, you feel like you're bidding and you feel like you're almost at an auction. And there is another part of it that, with the fierce protection of a client, especially if you're representing the purchaser, you feel that you lay your hand wide open, because on the escalation clause, you can put in there how high your client will go to obtain the property. So
I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what's happening. Whenever you hit, don't hit anything, Shelly. Whenever you hit something, it cuts me off.
Okay, Lee, take the field. We just basically explain what escalation clauses are and kind of that there's some pros and cons to them. So if you'll go over some of those,
Sure.
we would appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, an escalation clause is a tool that you can have in your toolbox. You know, especially if you have a multiple offer situation. You know, you might want to come out with some different ideas, just other than just, I'm just going to submit my offer and hope it's the best, or hope we can negotiate. That's one tool in your toolbox. There is one on LBAR that I think Shelly has provided for you all. You can get that off of your LBAR forms. And basically the details are that you're going to have a cap. What is your buyer willing to pay for this property? It's probably going to be above asking price in most cases. You're going to have to make sure that there's not an appraisal issue, because obviously if this is a real tight price point anyway, you know, they might not be able to go $10, $15, $20,000 above asking price unless they have that kind of money on hand. You know, it's basically an addendum that you submit, and it says we will pay X amount above any other bona fide offers up to a certain cap. And so the pros are that, well, let's say there's a property that's $250,000 and your person is willing to offer $1,000 more, and the seller gets several offers that are $250,000, and your escalation clause will put them at $251,000. They might say, hey, great, we're getting another $1,000. That's great. And your buyer has the wherewithal, either through financing or through money in their savings, to cover that additional amount, or they don't need an appraisal, or they're paying cash or whatnot. The other problem is, though, no matter what the amount is, you're kind of telling the seller, oh, by the way, I'm willing to pay this amount up to this cap. So a savvy seller would say, well, why wouldn't I just counter back? You know, if you're telling me I'm willing to pay $1,000 more than any offer up to 275 or 260 or 255, whatever that cap is that they put in there, a savvy seller might say, okay, great. Well, now you've already given me your top dollar amount, so why don't I just counter back at that? And that might work for them. You know, some sellers also don't necessarily want to do this. Some sellers feel like it might turn off the buyers. You know, even in a multiple offer situation, they might just want to just accept the best offer that's on the table and not create some kind of, you know, bidding war against all these other buyers that maybe it might turn off the buyers, you know, and they might think, oh my gosh, this is too complicated. I just want to offer a price and I just want that to be accepted. And some sellers will say, great, this is great. You know, I'm going to get top dollar for my house. And I like that. And so of course, once you get to that cap, whatever the final amount is, once you stop having these offers coming in and this escalation clause happening, then of course the seller has to counter offer with their final price, you know, and that would be put into the contract as the final price. The other thing that I see, I think an escalation clause can be a good thing, but the other problem that I see is you will notice in that escalation addendum that they have to submit to you the bona fide offers that they've received so that you can prove that there actually were some other bona fide offers and that they're not just making up a number. Well, we all are supposed to work ethically and legally and all of that, but you know, it's possible that a seller could go to their brother-in-law or their next door neighbor or someone and say, hey, write me an offer for this amount because I can get a little more for my house if I can show the buyer that I have this written offer for, you know, more than asking price, and now they have to go up 1,000 or 2,500 or 5,000 or whatever their escalating factor is. So there is certainly a potential for a seller to, you know, work the system and try to, you know, cheat the system. And there's not going to be a whole lot that you would be able to do to prove that, because it says you have to have a bona fide offer. And the brother-in-law or the neighbor could come in and say, oh yeah, I really wanted the house, but oh, well, sorry, I didn't get it because you had your escalation clause. The other thing that you all need to be aware of as agents is you'll see in that in paragraph 1D of that escalation clause, it can escalate and then escalate and then escalate and then escalate. So if more than one buyer comes in with an escalation clause, you could be going back and forth on this for quite a while up until somebody reaches their cap, right? So it's a pros and cons. My advice to people when I teach CE to people is what you want to do as a buyer's agent, particularly in a hot market where, you know, or if somebody really wants this property, or if there's not a lot of inventory and buyers are having a hard time, you know, getting their foot in the door and trying to get a property, give them the tools for their toolbox and then let them decide. And you can mention these pros and cons that I've just mentioned to you and let them decide. You don't want to not tell them, but you don't necessarily always want to do one. You don't necessarily always want to do a backup offer. You don't necessarily always want to do any of the other items that are in your toolbox, but you really should tell them that they have this option and show them the form and see if they want to do that. And they'll certainly have questions for you. And you all are more than welcome to call me, or you're more than welcome to call Shelly, and she can call me, and we can, you know, run through those pros and cons with you.
Can you also go over to where sometimes price isn't everything? So
yeah. Oh yeah. So in purchase contracts, there's things called terms and conditions. Terms is the price. So my example was the property was listed for $250. Okay, and let's say that's pretty much where it should be. Okay, that's a term. Okay, so if the buyer offers $250, let's full price.
Josh throw something. So
that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best offer they got, because the conditions are: is there a financing contingency? Is there appraisal contingency? Is there a survey contingency? Is there anything else in that contract that could potentially knock that one out? Those might be worse than taking $1,000 less, or, you know, taking another full price offer. So terms and conditions obviously need to be considered by the seller, because people always think it's just the price, but there's a whole lot of other things that could make someone else's offer better for that particular seller, even if it is less or even if it's the same amount in terms of the price. And Shelley and I discussed this yesterday, and she said this doesn't happen a lot in Central Kentucky, but you also can ask, if you're in a multiple offer situation, you could ask the seller's agent for the terms and conditions of any other offers on the table, and they have to go to the seller and request that information. And if you are a seller's agent and you get that request, you have to ask them, do you want to reveal the terms and conditions of your other offers? And if they say yes, then you certainly can do that. People are unaware or sometimes feel like that's not legit, but it is totally legitimate, it is totally ethical, and it is totally legal to do that.
Another thing I was thinking about too, if the seller accepts that escalation clause, I mean, another thing to think about is they really never know how much higher that those other buyers would have gone. I mean, you have to think about
right. Yeah.
all kinds of situations and just communicate. We do have a question in the chat, Lee. What if it doesn't appraise?
Well, that's an issue. That's one of the, that's one of the issues that the seller particularly has to think about. If you have a seller who has multiple offers on the table and one has an escalation, let's say 250 is pretty much what you feel as a seller's agent that property is worth. It is probably what the appraisal will come in for, right? And you get an escalation clause that says, I'll pay $5,000 more than, asking price on any offer that comes in, any bona fide offer, right? Well, you have to discuss with the seller, that sounds fantastic, but if this buyer that's getting this escalation clause in there has to get financing and it has to appraise and they don't have cash on hand to pay that difference, then, that seller could potentially be running off another buyer, who would pay $250 and could appraise in order to try to get a little more money. And, 30, 60, 45 days, whatever down the line, they find out, well, my deal went sour because it wouldn't appraise. So if you look at that section 1 on that escalation clause, you'll see there's 4 conditions there. And then the next section talks about when this happens. Depending on what they check off there, you can kind of tell, does this buyer have money to make up the difference on an appraisal or do they not? Because if it's all going to depend on financing and the percentage of loan to value, then that buyer might not be as strong as they're appearing to be at first glance.
Okay. And then I guess we just, another thing too, you just need to maybe reiterate, you don't want to do an escalation clause unless I would think 100%, like with 100% certainty that there's going to be multiple offers.
Oh, sure. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a tool for multiple offer situations. Yes.
Right. So that's the other, I think, important thing that this, you don't want to lay the cards out of your buyer if you don't have other offers you're competing for.
Right. Because you're basically telling them what you're willing to pay.
And if you've got questions, we're going to take questions. I'm afraid to actually open it up for anyone else. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat room for me and I will ask anybody. I'll ask Lee any questions that we have. Otherwise, we can share some information at the end, maybe through email. If you've got a specific situation, we'll talk about it then. So does anyone have any other questions about escalation clauses? Does anybody, are we seeing them? Wave your hand if you've seen them in the market right now. Okay, so we're seeing them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lee, let's make sure. Yes, we've got people saying yes, they're seeing it right now. So I think the main thing to remember is, and if you're not muted, if you will mute yourself. Let's see. We've got some ducks flying over. Afraid to mute all again because I don't want to lose Lee. I know, I'm afraid to hit anything. I don't want you to go anywhere. So, anyone else? Let's see.
I see some questions popping up.
We've got another question. Did you say that the seller does not have to disclose the terms of the other offers? Could you explain that one more time?
Yes, this is another option besides an escalation clause. If you have a buyer who is in a multiple offer situation and wants to put in a really strong offer, but not necessarily an escalation clause, then you as the buyer's agent can contact the seller's agent and you can ask for the terms and conditions of any other offers that are on the table. But the seller's agent has to get that permission from the seller. They have to go to the seller and say, do you want to reveal to this buyer the terms and conditions that you have on the table? The seller has the right to say no. Some sellers will say yes because they feel like that's a good thing. That means these buyers are going to start competing against each other. I'm going to get good offers. Some sellers say no for the reason that Shelley just mentioned. If you're below market price, if you're below list price, and you start revealing the terms and conditions of the offers, then that buyer may have gone up to list price or over, but now that they know that other offers on the table aren't necessarily as high as what they're willing to go to, they might not go as high as they could in a vacuum, So it's just tools in the toolbox, and it's just things that you need to mention to your people, and then they need to agree. And when you do this, do it by text or email, preferably email, so that you can show that you did that you asked them the question. What I don't want you to do from a legal standpoint is to just say to the buyer's agent, I'm not going to give you that information. You have to present that to the seller for their consideration. But a lot of agents will just say, nope, we don't do that, or I don't like that, or I'm just not going to do that, or that's not legal, it's not ethical. If you get that question, it must be presented to your client for their yes or no.
Yes. Okay, we got one more. Is escalation clause a term of the contract, or can we ask for if any offer has one?
Escalation clause is essentially an addendum to the contract. You want to make it an addendum, and you can ask for if you're asking for the terms and conditions, you can ask for are there any escalation clauses on the table? What are the terms of that? You can ask for anything you want. It's all legit as long as the seller agrees to it, and as long as the buyer has not requested confidentiality, which in residential real estate in Kentucky, I don't know that anybody ever does that. It happens a lot in commercial, but in residential real estate, very rarely does somebody present an offer and say, I want it to be kept confidential.
Right. And I can see too, I think it probably happens more in Louisville. So you've got cases here where they get offers and then they send them all back and they want the highest and best.
Sure. That's another tool.
And then if one of those agents asks for all the offers, now they have your buyer's top bid.
Right.
So it's all kinds of things to think about.
Yeah. Another thing you can do, which used to be very common in your market in central Kentucky, but I guess it's not anymore, from what I understand, because I teach classes down there, is you can also ask to present your own offer. If the seller agrees for you to come and present your own offer, then of course that gives you a leg up for your buyer because you're presenting your offer in the best light, not necessarily just a piece of paper sitting on a table with 5 other, offers that all, are printed on a piece of paper.
And I know this has absolutely nothing to do with escalation clauses, but we are sitting here talking about offers and offers and offers. And in December, there was a law that was just passed that when you get offers, you are supposed to, you want to speak on that?
Yes.
It's kind of new. I don't know if that'd be a good thing to go ahead and talk about.
Yes. When the offer is presented, you are supposed to send a written notification to the seller's agent that it was presented. So you should all be getting lots and lots of texts and emails all day long, every day, stating when your offers have been presented. And I'm going to be willing to bet that you're not receiving those.
I'm going to take that. Yeah, I'll take that bet.
And that law was passed on December 19th of 2019. So that's, by my calculation, about 5 months ago. So anytime you present an offer, you're supposed to say that on May 15th at 3:20 p.m., I presented your offer to the seller.
And I think as a company, and Kelly can speak on this maybe when she talks, it's probably a good idea to email that. Because we all have these text kind of rotations where they delete out of our text,
Yes. Email's your best bet.
And then just keep that in your file. So
yes.
In a hot market, are there things to look out for legally?
In a hot market?
Mm-hmm. Have you seen anything?
Well, I don't know that it's any different than legally speaking. I think, of course, you have to submit all written offers. So even if you have a hot property that, your seller gets an offer and they're just like Johnny on the spot, I'm taking this one, or I want to take this one or whatever, you still have to present all written offers. So they can let them, all offers have an expiration on them. It's supposed to expire tomorrow at noon or today at 10 p.m. or whatever. They can let them expire. They don't have to really do anything with them. They can throw them in the garbage if they want to. That's not the best for you. The best for you is to encourage your clients to reject all the ones they're not going to take or not going to counter. But what I see agents do is once they get an offer that the seller's interested in, then all the other ones, they just, forget about them and say, well, we've already got one that's, good, or we've already got one that they've signed. But you have to present all written offers because, offers become contracts. And as you know, based on contingencies such as inspections, financing, and appraisals, surveys, contracts fall through all the time. So if your seller were to find out, my house was hot and I got all these other offers, but because I had already dealt with this one or because I liked this one, I didn't even see the others, then that could be a violation of license law. And they can take offers as backup contracts if they want to accept a second one or a third one or a fourth one. And people always say to me, oh, backup contracts, boo, no, don't boo-hoo in a hot market backup contracts. There is low inventory right now. If your buyer wants this property, think about this. If they put a backup offer in there and the seller accepts it and that first offer falls through based upon one of those contingencies, or for whatever reason, the buyer just walks away, or COVID-19, they lose their job and they get that property, think what a gold star realtor you look like versus they didn't even put in a backup offer because someone else already, was interested. So I really am a big proponent of putting in a backup offer. Just give yourself a huge out. Just make it contingent on if the buyer finds another property that they like better, or if they want to get out of this for whatever reason, we get out, we get our earnest money back if we put it up, and the seller will sign a release within 24 hours or whatever. So you've got a bird in the hand and two in the bush. There's no reason not to do that because you never know when the primary contract could, fail.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good advice, Lee.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions coming in on the chat. So without that, is there anything else, Lee, that you wanted to add, or?
No, thank you all for having me.
Well,
Sorry for the original technical difficulties, but
well, we got Lee just in time. So I don't know if Lee can hear us or not, but thank you, Lee. You're cutting a little bit in and out on us, but thank you so much for taking your time and coming on board.
Absolutely.
We love having a relationship with you and we love helping you. You all don't know this, some of you do, but a lot of times I get questions from you all, and it's really nice having Lee on the other end of the line to kind of run it by. And so we really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Love you.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kelly. Bye, Shelly. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Okay, so next I want to invite Kelly Nisbet just to say a few words. I know it's been a week since we've heard from her, but she always has some great things to say. And so Kelly, welcome.
Hello, guys. Lee said it best. I think, the one thing that I wanted you all to be aware of is this tool that you can put in your toolbox. Because let's say you have a buyer and they're going into a multiple offer situation, and for some reason they don't get it. And then they're talking to somebody else that's been doing something with somebody and saying, oh yeah, my realtor put this escalation clause in and we got it and all of that. We got our offer. And so I just want you all to be aware of it. I think we need to be aware of it with our buyers and sellers. I think we need to definitely talk about the appraisal issue, because I know that we have a sales associate who did do an escalation clause last weekend, and they were the highest offer, but because it was getting up there over the asking price, they took an offer that was less than theirs, but had the statement in there that if the property does not appraise, they would still pay the purchase price. So a lot of times, in this day and age too, when you're looking at your buyers and sellers and talking with them and on these escalation clauses, you know, on FHA and Kentucky housing and different things like that, and look at your buyer and talk to your seller, because you know they might have two contracts and one without an escalation clause and one with them, and the one without the escalation clause is conventional, and the one with it is FHA, and it just seems like a better it's a better purchaser. It's a more solid contract. So it is a tool. I don't think that it is you have to have it to win it, but you have to have it, you have to be educated on it. You got to know about it, look at it. You know, I see something new every time, because I've been looking at it for the past few days because all the coordinators have sent it out. And every time I look at it and read over it, I see something else in there that, and I look at some instances and say, wow, that would be a great reason to say, see, I'm not really sure about this, would be good for you to use, or, oh wow, this could be good. So just make yourself familiar with it. Know that you can always call Shelly, myself, and anybody out there that if you know, please, if you have been involved in them and want to, you know, send Shelly or I an email and just say, this was my experience. It always, you know, we are better together than separate, so we can always know more. With that, I thank you all. We've had a great week. Things are starting to open back up. I'm looking forward to next week having a Zoom call to talk to you all about what our reopening and reunion of all of you wonderful people are going to be, and how we're going to go about that. So we're just working on some final touches on that, just to make sure that we're going to go back. We've always been essential, but we've just got to make sure that we're healthy, we're smart, and that we're doing things right. Because at this point in time, you know, when we were an essential business and we were working the way we were, you know, it was, you know, we were just being smart about it and washing our hands and everything. But now that there is a reopening plan, there are certain things that we will have to put on the doors, talking about if you've been sick, you know, and you've seen them all over town. The big stop sign. It almost is like the skull and crossbones. Beware. But it's, you know, this is a great time. It's a happy time. We're going to get to see our people again. Obviously 6 feet apart, and we just have some precautions that we've got to take. So I look forward to that. Where it's a great time to buy and sell in the bluegrass.
Yeah.
Thank you for being the best in blue.
All right. So as Kelly said, we are going to have a meeting next week. We'll do it a little bit earlier. We're getting into a happy hour time right now with these 3 o'clock calls. We kind of did this one around Lee's schedule today. And so we'll go over all of that, what it's going to look like when we kind of open up, how it's going to affect you all, and just let you know the guidelines we have to follow in order to open back up. We really kind of weren't ever closed, but it's a great time to list. It's a great time to buy for people. Get Michael's video out there. When is that going to be distributed? Are we distributing that today?
The link that I sent to you and Kelly,
Yes.
if you can get that to the office coordinators and they can group text to the offices, they'll have it in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll do that. It's less than a minute long. Again, I think it's a great tool for you all to send out, letting people know we're still out there making great things happen for other people. It's fantastic to see you all. I keep scrolling through the screens. Brett, You look like Christmas in July. I'm
Tell
not
you what.
sure. Brett's having a party over there. And so it's just awesome to see you all. We are always here. There's just, it's great. I can't say how happy we are to assist you in all that you all do. And so thank you all so much. Kelly, do you have anything else?
I want to give a shout out. Margie, thank you for hopping on. Margie
Yes.
is the manager in Southern Indiana. I think that she has an instance, she said, of a situation for an
Go ahead and
escalation
let her
clause.
talk if she wants to talk right now.
And you can talk or you can send it to us and we can send it out. But I just thank you so much for taking the time out. And
No, I didn't want to snub you, Margie, but I was afraid if I did anything or went away from Lee, we may lose her.
Understand. I can tell you real quick, I mean, it'll take 1 minute if you have a second, of an instance on the escalation clause. One of the biggest items is, as an agent, the buyer's agent, make sure you understand the clause well enough to explain it to your buyer. I had an agent that didn't really understand the form herself. And when you are going to an escalation amount, you go in increments. That increment can be $100 at a time. She had it going up $2,000 at a time. And that was not looking out for the best interest of her buyer. She made them go $2,000 in one leap, where $100 may have done it.
And I could see a price like that maybe on a $750,000
Yeah.
piece of property.
Mhm.
You know, so I can see, you know, it's all going to depend. But yeah, your smaller properties, I don't know that you need to go in that large of an increment. But I would also make sure, if you are dealing with an expensive property, sometimes if you did $100 escalation, they may not even mess with it.
Right.
On a property like that. So yeah,
Right.
good advice, Margie. So just kind of be aware of what you know, the dollar ranges you're dealing with. All right. Anyone else? I don't have any other questions in chat. And look, you all, it's 3:41, 41 minutes. We're getting good at these. We packed a lot of information in here, so hopefully you all got a few little nuggets again. Thank you. We will, everyone have a great weekend, and thanks a lot. We'll get the video out to you, and please, I love seeing it on social media. So I'll talk to you all later. Mwah. Bye, everyone.